Hello and welcome. This is Delia. Hi, how are ya? So I've brought you to this beautiful park. It's just this tucked away park. And it's apparently, they were thinking of it as a bird sanctuary, and they did a great job. So I'm sitting beneath this beautiful oak tree. Let me see if I can kind of show you a little bit of where we are. So here's this gorgeous oak tree. How gorgeous is that? Feel that energy? And a little mowed area and a park area that's not mowed. So it's very nature friendly here. And that's good because that fits in with what we're going to talk about today. So we're sharing a park bench, so I'm kind of looking at you funny. What we're going to talk about today is vibration and energy, and what are the practical meanings of all of that. I hear people talk a lot about wanting to stay away from negative and wanting to stay away from negative people and wanting to be positive. And I know what people mean by that. But what ends up happening if you're devoted to being positive and not negative is you have to either block out the negative, like the helicopters and the airplane, as if on cue at the beginning of this, or in any way, if you're focused on being positive and negative, you end up having to micromanage yourself and everybody around you. And it's exhausting. Have you noticed that? It's just exhausting. And you have to, it's like sorting M&Ms, or worse, because there's no chocolate. You have to decide, is this bad or is this good? Is this right or is this wrong? Is this positive or is this negative? And there's a whole simpler way of doing it all. So the purpose of positive and negative and all that jazz is to invite yourself to be aware of what's going on for you and what are you thinking, and the person that's talking to you, what are they kind of contributing, right? So if someone is complaining a lot, then you may feel like they're contributing negative energy. And if you're complaining a lot in your head, you may feel like you're contributing negative energy. However, there's a place where that kind of self-talk in you or anybody else is habit. And our culture uses complaining and judgment and discernment. We use those in this culture to show how intelligent we are, to show that we are aware of what's going on. We also use it as a bond for friendships. So if you're only noticing if you're complaining or if they're complaining, then you're not actually listening to what's being said. You're not listening for, what's going on, right? The right and wrong, good and bad is, let's call it a distraction. It's just a lot of distraction. And let's kind of table that for a moment. So if you're not navigating by right and wrong and good and bad, how do you navigate? It's a very legitimate question. So You know how handy it is to have a GPS, right? And you know you can never get lost if you have a GPS. You know, it solves a lot of things. It's a great invention. But do you also notice that if you drive only by your GPS, you have no idea how you got where you weren't? And you could never get there again if it wasn't for the GPS? I had that experience with finding this park. I could only find it on the GPS and on the map because I didn't know the area. And then once I got here by GPS, I had no idea how to get back here again. It was an adventure to get back here again. And I got lost, right, on the way over here. And in the good and bad and right and wrong world, that could be a bad thing because I got lost, right? And as you can see, I'm actually just kind of entertained by it. I got here and that's all I care about. But if you're having to measure right and wrong and good and bad all the time for everything, you're not only going to be exhausted, you're not going to know how you're doing because you keep looking at the GPS of good and bad and right and wrong. And there's a simpler way of knowing what is true for you and what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. And that's called heavy and light. So you have this incredible organic, let's call it an organic computer. And it has, part of its functionality is a sense of direction and a sense of balance. And there's like 92 senses that the body has. And your body is designed specifically to help you navigate the world. So your body is literally your soul's mate for this lifetime. Yeah, breathe that in. Your body, your delicious, fantastic, amazing body is your soul's mate for this lifetime. How cool is that? Now, I know there's a lot of furniture and confusion and misinformation and lies and all kind of bullshit between you and your body right now. It's just the culture we live in. And it can all be cleaned out and you can actually have direct access to the wisdom and information that your higher self, which is the infinite part of you, has to help your body personality navigate the world. So if you're navigating through right and wrong and good and bad, you're always going to feel lost and you're never going to feel like you're in charge, and you may have the experience of the rug being pulled out from you quite often. It's a very precarious way to operate. And so let's do this light and heavy so that you get an experience of it, because experiential practice of things is the only way that you can own them. So it's best if you close your eyes. This is not a good thing to do when you're driving. So you want to close your eyes and just take a couple of nice deep breaths. And just as you're breathing, just allow yourself to come into your body more and more and more, whatever that means. And just be aware of your body, your sweet body. Maybe kind of move your hands over your thighs, just like, hello, hello, hello. Good body. All right. Okay, so I'm going to say 2 sentences. You're going to repeat it to yourself. And let's go ahead right now and ask your body to give you a sensation for each of these sentences. So the first one is, my body likes to drink water. My body likes to drink water. And see where you feel that one. Yeah. Good. All right, so the second one is my body likes to drink paint thinner. My body likes to drink paint thinner. Yeah. All right, so pat your good, sweet body. All right, so hopefully you had two separate sensations. Water tends to be light, bright, and expansive. Paint thinner tends to be heavy, dark, and contracting. And you want a physical sensation, not a mental idea, not a concept. Because the purpose of this water and paint thinner, this light and heavy, is so that you can start to operate by something other than right and wrong and good and bad. So if you get a sensation, it's the way your higher self can give you your yes or your no and circumnavigate the nutty box, the analyzer. Yes, I know the analyzer is really fantastic and it does really amazing things. That's true. And in this culture, it's overutilized, right? And there are other capacities with knowing and information that your system has, that as long as the analyzer is the only part of you that gets any credit, because that's the way the culture is, then you're cutting off all this other really, really important and worthwhile information. And so, water and paint thinner, light and heavy, bright and dark, or as my body's been calling it lately, yummy and icky. So this is your way of getting your yes and your no, so that you can always know what's true for you in any given moment. So if you are complaining or articulating somebody's deficiencies, or whatever you want to call it, and you notice that sometimes when we're doing that, you can notice yourself kind of getting off on how clever you are. Or you can notice that you're showing off for somebody. Or you might notice that you're lonesome and whoever you're talking to, you're kind of knowing that they're going to agree with what you're saying. So this is a way of like bonding. And it's more important that you know those things, that you have the awareness of that stuff, than it is that you kind of choke chain your way out of complaining, right? If you're complaining about work, let's say, a lot of people complain about work. And you're probably complaining about the people. You're probably not complaining about the tasks. We don't seem to mind doing stupid tasks. We seem to mind stupid people more. So here you are, and you find yourself very tense and unhappy in your neck and shoulders and everything, and you're out with friends and you're complaining up a storm. So let's say that's the situation you find yourself in. What if, try this as an experiment. What if, instead of getting really mad at yourself for complaining, what if you have some compassion for yourself? And what if you're interested in what you're complaining about? You know, another use of complaining, especially in that kind of a situation, is part of the point of building a case against something or somebody is we're trying to elicit support. And if you're complaining strictly to elicit support for, what a jerk that person is, that's one thing. But if you're complaining to find out if how you're perceiving things are accurate or not, that's really legitimate. That's not actually complaining. That would be exploring, I'm really upset, this is making me crazy, and I can't tell if I'm missing something or what? See, that's a very fruitful thing to do. But complaining because it's a habit, that's not. That kind of just keeps you in the baby pool. And also, if you were actually listening to you, you would not keep complaining. I laugh because all of this is very amusing to me because I've done all of this and I've seen it in action. But if you're complaining and nobody is listening, that means if you're complaining and you feel like nobody's listening, it means it's a sign that you are not listening. And if you are not listening to you, you are going to feel out, left out, hung out to dry, and unsupported, and unlistened to, and on shifting sand. You're not going to feel stable or anything. Because if you're not listening to you, the Dalai Lama could be in front of you, listening to every word that you say and every gesture and everything behind the words and in between the words and everything else. And if you're not listening to you, you're not going to receive what the Dalai Lama is offering you. So the thing about vibration is it's dispassionate. It has no judgment. And it simply is whatever it is. I think it was Einstein, but it could have been, who knows. That somebody, a smart scientist said something to the effect that like attracts like is not a philosophy, and it's not unicorn thinking, and it's not wishful thinking. It's physics. And what does that mean? So that means that if you and your friends have a common bond of alcohol, then when one of you stops doing the alcohol, they don't fit in anymore because you don't have that vibe anymore. And if you and your friends have the common denominator of complaining and not really doing anything about what you're complaining about, then if one of you starts to change, it's going to disrupt the whole crew. And if you want your life to be different than what you're experiencing, then you have to be willing to be different. And that can be scary because it does mean a change in your friends, usually. Maybe a change in your job or your living situation. And you can change and keep all of those the same. It's really up to you. But the vibration that you're operating from will have to change. So, like people who win the lottery, right? And they don't keep it. It's because their energy hasn't changed. And by that I mean, if you have a belief that says you're not good enough, then no matter what happens, you're going to arrange with the universe so that circumstances, people, places, and things all conspire to prove you right, that you don't deserve. Because you're vibrating at that not deserving thing. I don't know if you remember Lucy and Ricky, but I saw a documentary they were interviewing Lucy, and she was saying how Ricky had been the love of her life, but he had had a really hard life before they met. And we would probably say that there was some, PTSD in there, and abuses, different kinds, whatever. They didn't bother with that stuff. They just said he had a hard life. And by that I mean they didn't bother analyzing it and categorizing it. They just acknowledged that he had a hard life. So no matter how successful they got, Ricky couldn't quite vibrate at the success. And so he kept kind of repelling it. The hip term these days is self-sabotage. And I have to tell you something about self-sabotage. I've never met a self-sabotage that wasn't a life wish. And by that it means it's trying to save you from something. It's likely full of misinformation. That is not the important part. The important part is to understand that if, let's use Ricky, if Ricky believed that if he had money, then he would not have to worry, and if he didn't have to worry, then he might relax, and if he relaxed and stood down, then when that bad thing that happened when he was a kid that got stuck, the PTSD thing, when that bad thing happened again, he wouldn't be prepared to handle it, and so he could never let go of the need to be prepared for the bad thing to happen. And he couldn't let go of it because he was desperately trying to protect himself and save himself from the bad thing that happened. So he kept projecting the bad thing that happened into his everyday life and into his future for years and years and years and years. And so when things got good, he had a choice of either let go of the bad thing that happened and embrace the good things that were happening, or what. And so he was never able to let go of the bad things that happened. And so he kept creating through that pain picture, and he kept creating loss or disappointment, or well, come to think of it, I think he was a drinker. So he was recreating it in his head, and that kept that energy alive. And so even if he did have a really full bank account and Lucy and the kids, he couldn't receive any of it. And so, but he could receive the alcohol, and he could receive the kind of the energies that come with alcohol to plague him, to make him feel right, to be nervous about losing everything. So if you want to change your situation, you have to be willing to be different. And not only do you have to be willing to be different, you have to be willing to be barriers down and operate differently. If you listen to Brene Brown, she talks about vulnerability. Many people are starting to talk about vulnerability more. Vulnerability has nothing to do with being a doormat. It has nothing to do with putting up with abuse or crap that you don't want to put up with. But vulnerability does have to do with how you operate and how you are on the inside. So we'll do vulnerability another day. That's a big topic. But how you think, how you operate are intertwined, but they're different things. And complaining is a common thing in our culture. So I'm inviting you to notice about the complaining. And when you're in the complaining, instead of just having a knee-jerk reaction to it, be curious. Am I complaining because I'm lonesome and this person will, we can, increase our bond over, how stupid people are, or how, how, whatever the complaints are about. Or are you complaining because you don't know what else to say? And I invite you to not judge yourself for it, but to be curious and to notice. And then to have some kind of a demonstration that your body understands. Touch is one of body's first languages. So when I say pat the body, I'm talking about this kind of being with yourself, but not pat like a dog. But when you pat the body and actually say, good body, good body, good body. Yeah, see, your body smiles. My body always, oh yeah. Smile and feels better, so much better. Because your body is completely on your side. Your brain is trying to be on your side. It just has some misinformation in there. So for you to start to choose to be on your side no matter what, and just be curious about why you're doing, just be curious. Am I doing this because I'm lonesome? Am I doing this because I want to be right? Am I doing this so I can show how smart I am? Just be curious. You don't have to change anything yet. Just be curious. And know that when it's time for you to make some changes, they're going to be on the inside, right? So this kind of brings us back to why I'm out in a park. I'm inviting you to spend some few minutes every day, yes, every day, intentionally vibing at the vibration that you desire. So being out in nature, going to a park, even with the airplanes and anything else that's going on, it feels different than sitting in a Starbucks. And it might feel kind of relaxing. It might feel restorative. Your body might really like being in a park. And if you can find a park that doesn't have a lot of people in it, your body might really like being kind of unlimited by the other people around you. Sure, there's things that we can do to be unlimited with people around us, but let's just start here and go and spend some time with other living beings like trees and birds and grass and rocks and water. Pretty much every place has parks. So you can find a park someplace. And you can probably find a park that doesn't have a lot of people around. And enjoy your brothers and sisters in nature, the trees and the sky and the breeze, right? So here's a thing that you can do when you're out at the park. Let's go over, let's see, my foot's asleep. Let's go over to this beautiful oak tree, right? All right. So find a place where you can stand, there you go, next to the tree, and just kind of lean up against the tree. And maybe look up. All right, just leaning against the tree. Just close your eyes. Just kind of lean your weight into the tree. give over your weight to the tree. And now just invite and allow the tree to give your whole body a healing, particularly your spine, all the way down and up. Yeah. You can imagine your feet are rooted and grounded, reaching down to the center of the planet. And the top of your head is reaching up way past the canopy of the tree, up into the center of the universe, whatever that means. And just allow that energy to flow from the center of the universe to the center of the planet, all through your spine and through your body. Releasing anything that's no longer for your greater good. Let it go, let it go, let it go. And help the healing by lowering your barriers. Barriers down, barriers down, barriers down. All levels, layers, and dimensions, barriers down. Good body. Nice breathing. Good body. Good body. See how pretty this place is? You can use your clairvoyance. You see all the sprites and little fairy beings that live in that wood right there? Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So, spend some time with light and heavy and listening when you're complaining. Not judging, but listening. And go find a tree in your neighborhood. If you can't find a park or you don't know where to find a park, find a tree in your neighborhood and start going for tree healings. And let me know how that goes for you. All right? Thanks. See you later.